To continue, there are a few more modifying commands or drawing commands that I want to show you. The first is spline, and everybody tends to love this tool. It's actually a really great tool. You'll notice that it says S, P-L-I-N-E. A spline is essentially a curvy P-line or a polyline. So the way it works is a lot like a polyline, okay? And the only difference is that when you start to draw the spline, it starts to draw it with curves. So we'll see it when we start to enter the command. Now the tool button for it is up in the draw menu, and it's these two buttons up here, or you can type in S-P-L-I-N-E or S-P-L. And it's going to ask me, like any other draw tool, to specify the first point, second point, and as I go, you'll see that essentially all of these curves are being made. I can keep clicking again like the polyline until I hit enter to get out of that. Now with the spline, and if I select it using my selection tools, basically it works just like any other polyline or line or any other object in that it has its control points where it can be stretched and adjusted as needed. Okay, and again, if I have an object above, you can always take the grip and you can snap it to another object. Okay, but the difference between the spline is that there's two ways that you can control it. One is by controlling these vertex points. Okay, the other is that if I click on this and select my spline, and there's a little flag down here, if I click on the flag, it'll give you the option to either have your fit points or your control vertices. Okay, the fit points are what you see, so these vertices are what you see, and I can snap to them and I can adjust them as I need to using the stretch commands or just by stretching the grip. What I can also do is I can select to have it to show itself by having a control vertex. Okay, and basically what this does is it controls the vertices outside of the spline in order to get it its shape. So rather than working directly on the spline, you work outside of it in order to adjust it. Okay, and so that's a really good tool to start to use and start to add some curves into your design if you want to do it that way. Now, what is another useful tool when we start to work with our modifiers? So for example, if I'm making a line, okay, a lot of times what we want to do is we want to separate our line into equal spacing. So this is essentially the divide command. And the divide command, what it does is it essentially takes an object and it divides it into equal spacing. So I can do a line, I can do a rectangle, and I can do a circle. Okay, so if I type in div for divide and select the object that I want to divide, it's going to ask me the number of segments. So it's basically asking me, I have this line, how many segments do you want to break it up into? So let's say 6. Okay, so I'm going to enter 6 and hit enter. Now, it seems as though nothing has happened. Okay, something actually did happen, we just can't see it. That's the problem. So what it does, and the way that AutoCAD works with the divide tool, is if I click on the line, you'll see that the line is still continuous. It's still one solid line. It's still one continuous line. It's not broken up. But what the divide tool does is it essentially sits on the line, these demarcation points of where these points of separation are, these points of division are. The problem is with AutoCAD is that you can't see them, okay, because the default is for them to be really, really, really small, like basically a point on the line. So in order to be able to see it, okay, you can either go to your utilities and go to point style, okay, or the command is ddp type, okay, for the point type. I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see that the point style is this tiny little dot, so of course we can't see it. So what we need to do is we need to change that, and we need to adjust it to one that we can see. Now usually I use the circle with the X through it, and the reason why is, you'll see in a second, is that connects to the node object snap. Okay, and that's the one that we have to use in order to snap to it. So if I click on that and say OK, now what happens is it sets up AutoCAD in order to have any type of these points to show as this symbol that we just chose, rather than having it be a singular dot on an object. Okay, and now what we want to do is, again, you'll see that it's one continuous line. So all these are just points sitting on top of the line or the other object. in order to show you where those separations would be. Okay, so you'll see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. To snap to it, in order to get our divisions, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my construction line. Okay, and the object snap that I have to use for this is node. So if you don't have it on, okay, we need to go to our object snaps and we need to make sure that our node is actually selected, because if it's not, no other snap is going to work. Okay, so I can, with my construction line, if I take a vertical construction line, I can snap it to those points and I can do whatever I want. I can trim out, you know, a portion of it. I can, you know, maybe trim out more. I can take this and I can stretch it. Okay, all it does is it shows me where those divisions are. And then when I'm done, I can just select my points and I can erase them. Okay, because they just sit on top of any object. So I'm going to erase all this, and you'll see that if I try to divide, for example, the circle, okay, if we want to make a pizza, maybe 12 slices, I'm going to type in 12, and it's going to show me, okay, where those divisions are in order to have 12 equal slices. If I have a rectangle, okay, I can separate into 8 equal parts. And now what you'll notice is that it is a little off from the corner here. So what it does is it doesn't take into consideration the corners and the segments of the rectangle, but what it does is it starts at this point and it moves its way around. Okay, so that's why this is not exactly on that endpoint. And then I can also use it for splines too. And you can use it for polylines, you can use it for lines as we saw. So we can do it with any object. And I'm going to, again, type in div for divide, select my spline, and we can say, you know, 33. And it's going to create 33 equal portions on that spline. So it's a very, very helpful tool. Now what you'll find is that when you start to work with curves and circles and anything like, you know, any of those curvy shapes in AutoCAD, what happens is that a lot of the times what AutoCAD does is it essentially tries to keep itself, you know, using as less memory as it possibly can, because the more memory it takes up, the more it's going to bog down the computer. So what happens is a lot of times it will take the circle, and you know you've drawn a circle and you know it's a circle, and it's really hard to, you know, reproduce if it doesn't do it on its own. But basically what it does is it essentially makes the circle look like segmented lines, okay, almost like an octagon in a way. And what it does is it basically does that for a reason, in order to, you know, save a little bit of memory. So if you ever find that you did draw a circle, okay, and you might draw another circle and it might come out looking segmented too, again, that's just AutoCAD doing that. And, you know, a lot of people will, you know, spin their wheels trying to create circles and circles and circles and circles. But the real problem is what you need to do is, if that ever happens and you know you've drawn a circle, and every time you draw a circle or a curve, it makes it look like these straight lines, okay, all you have to do is type in RE for regen, okay, and you can also type in REGEN, and what that does is it regenerates the drawing, okay. Once you do that, it'll regenerate it. You'll see that nothing happened here because AutoCAD's not doing that to my drawing, but what happens is that once you type in regen or regenerate, then what it does is it refreshes your screen and it'll make things look curvy again.